Hello, everyone. My name is Cassidy. I am a community librarian with the Edmonton Public Library, and I'm very happy to be introducing our speaker series as a whole. So this is a partnership with Future Energy Systems, and it was before we closed in the spring an in-person speaker series, but we've moved virtually, and we're very happy to see so many people joining us online. Just a few housekeeping things. I am here to offer any tech support. If anyone has any issues or is having trouble with Zoom, feel free to pop in the chat and I will do my best to help you out. We are recording the talk this evening. However, we're not recording any of the participants' videos. That said, there will be a time to ask questions and the recording might catch your audio. If you would like to remain anonymous, you can always put your question in the chat box. And our lovely contact from Future Energy Systems, Valerie, who's going to introduce our topic in just a little bit, we'll be able to ask them to our speakers. So there is a way to anonymously ask any questions you may have. We are also going to be running a few polls as part of this conversation this evening, just a chance to see where everyone's at. I'm going to give a minute for those, but I'll keep an eye on it. It should just pop right up on your screen when we're doing those polls, so you shouldn't have any issue there. But if you do, pop in the chat and let us know. And that's enough for me because I am not the person that you're here to hear from. So I'm going to pass it over to Valerie, and I hope you enjoy this evening's talk.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Valerie Miller, and I'm the Outreach and Engagement Coordinator for Future Energy Systems. First, the University of Alberta acknowledges that we are located on Treaty 6 territory and respects the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all First Peoples of Canada, whose presence continues to enrich our vibrant community. And we're here from Future Energy Systems, which was launched in 2016 with a $75 million grant from the Government of Canada, Canada's First Research Excellence Fund, to help Canada transition to a low carbon energy economy. We focus on multidisciplinary research that develops the energy technologies of the near future, integrates them into today's infrastructure, and examines the possible consequences for our society, economy, and environment. We also contribute to the development of possible solutions for the challenges presented by current energy systems. At the moment, we have 105 research projects, 669 graduate students, postdoctoral fellows, and highly qualified personnel, and 142 researchers, two of which you will get to meet today. We wish to remind current and future viewers that the opinions expressed by the speakers are not necessarily those of the Edmonton Public Library, Future Energy Systems, or the University of Alberta. Now I'm going to pass it over to our speakers to introduce themselves. So we have Dr. Nilakshi Joshi and Dr. Sandeep Agrawal. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Valerie, for that introduction, and thanks to Edmonton Public Library and FES for providing us this platform today to present our research. I would like to begin by introducing my co-speaker today. Dr. Sandeep Agrawal is the professor and director of the School of Urban and Regional Planning at the University of Alberta. He's the associate chair of the Department of Earth and Atmospheric Sciences. His research interests are very varied, from sustainable urban and rural planning to multiculturalism to Indigenous issues and human rights. Locally, he has served on Edmonton's Subdivision and Development Appeals Board and Alberta's Municipal Government Board. So, Sandeep.
Okay. Well, thank you for that introduction, Nilakshi. I hope you can hear me and everyone else.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. So I'm going to introduce Nilakshi. I have known Nilakshi since 2013, so about 7-8 years. I was on sabbatical in 2012, 2013, and I went there to teach, and Nilakshi happened to be in my class, and I must say she was one of my best students, and we kept in touch. And she went on to do her PhD in Germany, and we met up again after 8 years. Her doctoral work is about climate change, focusing on the fragile, Himalayan regions of India and the risks of rapid, unplanned urban development in the entire northern part of India. As a postdoctoral fellow in my lab at the University of Alberta, she leads a number of projects, and they're all about transitions to low carbon pathways in Canada. So with that, I'm going to get started. Our title for today's presentation is Yes, Energy Transition in My Backyard. Next slide. So in this presentation, we're going to talk about two research questions. First one is, what role are community organizations playing in energy transition? And the second question is, what does happen when established community organizations like community leagues here in Edmonton adopt or adapt the ideas of energy transition? Next slide. So we want to make sure that that we let you know our key messages right up front. So there are three key messages, or rather takeaways from our presentation. First one is that the community-led action is integral to addressing large-scale energy transition. So although it starts small, but it could be scaled up. Second message here is that established community structures present opportunities for fostering energy transition. And third one is, which is the flip side of it, that they do face challenges in initiating energy transition. So these are the three key messages. Next slide. So we'll start off with the first question: what role are community organizations playing in energy transition? So what you have is essentially the fact that global warming, climate change, greenhouse gas emissions, and the need for energy transitions are some of the very pressing issues our planet is facing. Next slide. So given the scale and the global impact of these issues, they generally tend to be responded to by international organizations like United Nations or federal government or provincial government, and in some cases, municipal government. But there has been a growing momentum to understand bottom-up action to lead and direct sustainable transitions. And what we have noticed and what we're going to present is about the role of community-based grassroots organizations, which are sort of becoming important, innovative niches with the potential for large-scale sustainability transformations. And these initiatives include a whole bunch of things, but they're not just limited to community-level recycling or gardening or housing or those kind of things. Next slide. So community-based organizations are innovative networks of activists and advocates that lead bottom-up solutions for sustainable development. And these solutions are something that can respond to the local situation and the interest and values of the communities involved. Next slide. So this one is about, just as an example, this is a small town called Totnes in the UK, which started an initiative. It's called Transition Town Initiative. And it's an interesting one. Totnes is, again, one of the first towns that declared itself to be in transition. And this is an initiative which is community-led, response to peak oil, meaning when oil will no more be available, climate change, building resilience. And basically what it is a network of volunteers, thinkers, and doers who promote the idea of transition. And they experiment with a whole bunch of things, like what may happen to food, what may be the new sources of food, or energy, or housing, or what arts may look like in the peak oil times. Next slide. Now, this is an important one. This is about the challenges and barriers that community organizations face. And they essentially face two sets of challenges. One is more intrinsic to the organization itself. And these are, I would say, obvious ones. First one is volunteer burnouts. That you have these people who are volunteering for these initiatives, and a lot of work sort of get dumped on them. Drastic change in financial resources or funding cut is another serious issue to these organizations. And the third one is the short-lived nature of many of the initiatives. So it's possible that one person is taking on an initiative and that person for some reason leaves, and with that goes the documentation of that initiative, or even the institutional memory of that initiative that one could learn from. The other set of challenges is about diffusion, and that is about diffusion and dissemination of the knowledge within the local community, or things that could be replicated within a specific context. Or other challenges are how to engage the local citizens, or even to influence other levels of government, whether they are municipal government or provincial government or even federal government. So a large number of challenges relate to the newness of niches and the challenges they face in sort of making sure that there's a foothold of these new initiatives within their communities. So us being urban planners, we are interested in inquiring how neighborhood organizations play their role in energy transition, and we are focusing on Edmonton's community leagues. Next slide. So next question is, what happens when established community organizations like community leagues adopt or adapt the ideas of energy transition? And I believe there's a poll coming, Nilakshi, am I correct?
Yep.
Oh, it's the next one. All right. So those of you, and I don't know how many of you live in Edmonton, but if you do, then please take this poll and tell us if you are a member of your community league. And there are 3 options for you to choose from. So we'll give you a minute or so. So the responses are still coming. So, and we have 15 seconds left. All right, so we have our results here. Yes, I'm an active member. 1/3 of you said that. Another 1/3 almost said no, but I participate in league activities. And the other 1/3 said that you do not know what community leagues are. So that's an interesting slice of the answers here. So thank you for answering the poll. So we'll keep moving along, and I wanted to go to the next slide, Nilakshi. So this is, I'm going to turn this poll off first. Do I need to share the results, Nilakshi, or should I just turn it off?
So we just, so now the attendees should be able to see the results.
Okay,
Just
so
let it, yeah, now we can stop sharing and I will just close it. Yeah.
All right, okay. Thank you. So, so I live in Aspen Gardens, Westbrook area. So I wanted to personalize this presentation a little bit. So Aspen Gardens is my community league, and our message is wear mask because Batman says so and does so. Next slide. So our community league here in Aspen Gardens organize all kinds of events, such as in winter, we arranged ice carving and ice luge, grab and go food trucks. And you could see my son, who's wearing hat, red and white hat, and eating fire roasted apple. Next slide. They arranged sleigh rides for kids. Next slide. And in the summer, we got to ride on Segways, Segway scooters. And you see my daughter on the right side, and left it's me. So these are great activities that our community league organized especially during these days of pandemic. But they have done other events as well. Display of restored classic and vintage cars, permaculture landscaping programs for seniors, like pole walking in the ravine that we have near us, soccer for kids. And I also remember my days on Edmonton's SDAB, the subdivision board, where community leagues get involved in the appeals of development permits. Next slide. So this one is another poll that we ask you to take. And the question that we are asking here is, how do you engage with your community league? And you have 3 options, and you get about a minute to answer this poll.
So just a interjection there. If you are typing others, we are very curious to know the nature of activities that you participate in, and please feel free to use the chat box at this point to describe any other activity that your league initiates and the ones that you engage in.
So I hand it over to you, Nilakshi.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Sandeep. And very interesting results popping up there. So 33% of you actively volunteer in your community leagues. A resounding 43% of you are active in sports and social events, and 40% people participate in other activities. And I'll just peek into the chat box to see what answers have come in. So we have board members in our audience today. Okay, so thank you very much for sharing those results with us, and they sort of tie to something that we would like to talk about. So you see there's a lot of association of leagues with sports and social events. But early on, when I came into Edmonton as a new resident, one of the activities or one of the programs that the Edmonton Federation of Community Leagues had started way back in 2018 caught my attention, both as a researcher working on energy transitions and also out of my personal interest in the subject. So Green Leagues is a program that was started by the Edmonton Federation of Community Leagues in association with the city of Edmonton, as well as some other participating leagues who had started already transitioning or using their interest in sustainability and bringing it to their leagues. So what the Green League program was doing was that it was working, or it started working with interested community leagues. And it had two key projects that it was working on. One was to ensure ensure that leagues or league buildings had energy audits done and present ways in which they could retrofit the league halls. And the second one was to do with the installation of rooftop solar to partially or completely substitute the energy needs of the leagues. And at this point, I would like to acknowledge the support of the Green Leagues program and some of these participating leagues, some of whose members are in the audience today, who have been very helpful in our research. And it's a relatively new program that started in 2018, but within that short time, the Green Leagues program has helped in some leagues in making these steps, in doing this transition. And as you see here on the screen, the very impressive solar installation on the rooftop of Blue Quill Community League. And it has not just stayed to capital projects. There are other leagues like the Cloverdale League, and you see a poster from their Eco Solar Home Tour. Also opened their doors for residents to come in to see how solar energy was produced, what energy retrofits were all about, and so on and so forth. Some very impressive work is also being done by the Riverdale Community League. Here in this picture, you see their very famous solar gazebo, which they have installed next to their community garden. And Riverdale Community League is a bit unique in this discussion because they use the opportunity to also to bring together like-minded people who were interested in sustainability to form a sustainability council, which has 12 active members and who promote these ideas within the community. At this moment, we were also curious to know if you know of your league, or whether your league has participated in any energy efficiency project or renewable energy project, or any sustainability related project. Please do let us know. We're quite curious to know. Okay, we still have about 30 seconds to go. Okay. The interesting thing about this is that some leagues have taken bigger steps and some leagues have taken smaller steps. So feel free to do that. And now you're viewing the results. So 23% of you, or 7 people, are here in the audience whose community leagues are active participants in the program. 16% or 5 people clearly indicate that their league has not done anything in this regard. And 61% are not sure. So it's a good time to also probably look at if your league is engaged in such activities. So thank you for sharing that with us. So initially, we out of our research interest, we contacted the Green Leagues program, and this was way back in 2019, and they pointed 21 leagues that had taken this initiative. Out of these 21 leagues, we were able to contact 10 leagues who were interested in this research and interested in talking to us. And at the bottom of the screen, on your right side, you would see the list of those leagues that have participated in our research. So we did 2 things. We first talked to sustainability directors, or these were mostly volunteers who had sort of who had brought this project into the league, who were leading it. And we were curious to know about their experience in establishing the idea of energy transition as a goal for their community league. And this was followed by a online survey of residents of those same leagues to see how the league's transition had impacted residents. And this is very important because, and this is very central to our inquiry, because ultimately, the leagues are in a very central position in their neighborhoods, and we were curious to know if they had that influence in diffusing these ideas. So moving to some of the things that we heard and some of the results of this conversation. So talking with sustainability managers, we realized that there were intrinsic opportunities, and this ties back to the slide that Sandeep had presented earlier. There were certain intrinsic opportunities that the leagues presented because they had organizational structures, they already had an existing community presence, and this really helped to sort of provide a nest for the program to take form and shape. They also presented diffusion of opportunities because leagues already had access to neighborhood residents. They enjoyed the trust and familiarity of their community, which many new community-based initiatives take time to sort of build this relationship within their communities. And the resident survey sort of resonated that. So among the 75 participants from these 10 neighborhoods that participated in this survey, we found that, and I would start from the left corner here, we found that there was an interest or a very strong interest in energy transition, or the idea of energy transition within these neighborhoods. So there were 60% of our respondents were very interested in this. About awareness of league activities, so sort of resonating with the results that we had today, 36% people knew what was going on, were aware of the activities of their leagues in the direction of energy transition. 57% of people were not sure, like on the lines of maybe. A small number were did not know about these activities. And finally, we asked people if they had themselves transitioned in some way. And these transitions ranged from small things like changing windows to much larger things like installing rooftop solar. And here we found that 69% people said that they had transitioned. Again, talking with some of the sustainability directors, we got to know that they felt that the league were in a good position to take up this role. So understanding the roles and responsibilities of a community league from a place for people to gather and share information, I think we're doing a pretty good job of that. So this resonated with some of the initial hypotheses that we had about the league's position. However, there were also challenges that community leagues faced. And the biggest challenge that resonated again and again was the establishment of this idea or this new objective of sustainability within an established organized structure. And that is because traditionally leagues have not been associated with being the leaders in energy transition or being or dealing with sustainability. That, as you saw earlier, that traditionally their traditional role has been more around social gatherings or organizing sports. So some volunteers felt that it took time to embed this view within the league. And then most leagues worked with limited volunteer time and energy, and in certain cases, having this new objective stretched the capacity of the league. So as one of the key respondents, key informants informed us, so I think there is some interest at the board level, but I don't get a real sense of enthusiasm about it, except for one or two members. They have had a traditional role around recreational things and picnics and barbecues, and the ski, the soccer. This was also resonated in some of our survey findings. So you see here, those people who had said that they had made personal transitions. So we asked them if the league had played any role in influencing those decisions. And here you would see that a limited number of people, so 38% of people said that the league had played an very important to a moderately important role, whereas 41% of the people indicated that the league had not played an important role. And there were many reasons for this. And one of the reasons was that some of the barriers that people faced in transitioning, and they felt that it was not up to the league to solve those. And here I've listed 3 of them. So finances were identified as an extremely important barrier. Time, to invest time in doing this. And personal interest was also identified as a somewhat important barrier. So with that, we come, and I come back to the slide that Sandeep had presented earlier, sort of concluding some of the work that we've been doing. So we find that community-led action is integral to addressing large-scale energy transitions. Established structures like the community leagues present opportunities for fostering this idea. However, established community structures also face challenges in addressing energy transitions. And with that, we come to the end of this presentation, but we would like to keep this conversation going. And we would like to ask you at this point, and please feel free to use the chat box, to know more about how can community leagues facilitate energy transition in your background. We will also share in the chat box the link to our survey. So if you live in any of the 10 leagues which we had identified earlier, please do respond to this survey. It takes about 5 minutes of your time. We are interested to hear back from you. If your league was not mentioned, but if you would like your league to participate in this research, our email addresses are shared on this slide. Please feel free to contact us. And as I said, with this, we come to the end of the presentation. But this is an ongoing discussion. This is an ongoing research, and we would love to hear back from you.
Thank you so much, Nilakshi and Sandeep. we're going to now get into our discussion and our questions. So for everyone in the audience, please feel free to put your questions in the chat or ask them yourselves. The first thing I'm going to just ask, for people who maybe aren't from Edmonton or aren't involved in community leagues, can you explain what a community league is and how it relates to other programs in other cities? Like what would be something comparable in other places around the world?
Sandeep, do you want to answer that or should I?
Go ahead, and I can add to what you said.
Okay, so if you noticed in the chat box already, we have someone from Calgary and who works at Calgary Climate Hub. So there are organizations that work at city level, community-led organizations that address sustainability, that address climate change. What we found very unique about the leagues were two things. One was the scale at which they operate, which is the neighborhood scale, which is a very important and I would even say an unrepresented scale at urban level when we talk of energy transitions. And the second thing which is very unique to community leagues here is the time period in which they have existed in the community. Next year would be the centenary year of community leagues. And this is really their unique strength. As I said, it brings with it a presence in the community, a sort of trust of the community, which we feel is very important to take up this idea.
I can add to what Nilakshi said, and having lived in the US and Toronto and other places before coming to Edmonton, you can relate to other neighborhood organizations like homeowners association or taxpayers association and so on and so forth in other places. But what is interesting about community league, rather leagues here in Edmonton, is that it has much more institutionalized structure, and to some respect, even the municipal government gives enough credence to the existence of community league, which may not be the case in other cities or in other countries.
Any ideas why Edmonton has such a strong culture for community leagues compared to other cities?
This is Reg from Cloverdale. Community leagues started 100 years ago, and the first 8 were formed. It was the city hired a the first city manager who came from the United States, and he had that concept in mind when he moved to Edmonton. So he launched it. It started in 8 neighborhoods. One of them was Cloverdale, and initially it was very male-oriented. It was kind of a ratepayers association focused on and on the men as the leaders of the community, having a dialogue and a connection with city council. Then over the years, it's evolved to be have a strong recreational focus. I think there's about over 150 community leagues in Edmonton. Many of them have halls, and so they're a very neighborhood-based way for families, children, seniors to get engaged. Because of that traditional recreational focus and social activities at the hall, and was identified in the slides, branching out into these larger issues like climate change, transition, inclusion, mental health, poverty. Those become challenges because people don't see that as within the mandate of community leagues. But really, the neighborhood, the community, is the locus, the nexus for everything that happens in society, whether it's environment, whether it's safety, whether it's isolation, mental health. it all comes down to the neighborhood level, and the challenge that community leagues face, and certainly my experience with our hall renovation project, was how do you give people permission to see this stuff is all inclusive rather than in separate silos? That's for me the biggest challenge.
Thank you so much, Reg, for sharing. Sandeep, Nilakshi, did you want to add anything?
So I completely agree with Reg, and I know he has a very cool anecdote about getting the league's board to fund the renovations of the hall. And Reg, if you would like to share that with us, and I'm referring to the patio, if that rings a bell.
Yes. I've had solar panels on my home for about 5 or 6 years now, and then I said, okay, what the heck? I'll see if I can get the community league interested. So it really came from my own experience with my family, introducing it to the community league. And at the board level, nobody said no, but nobody said yes. They just let me go ahead with it. Sort of the silence is a consent or assent. When we had our community meeting to put the proposal forward and the funding, we broke it down into 2 parts. One was the energy efficiency upgrades for the hall, which included the solar panels, new HVAC system, LED lights, just a new upgraded insulation, windows and doors. And then we broke out a separate project to put a new deck around the hall, which was showing some wear and tear. When we put it to a vote, about 68% of the people in the audience, I can't remember how many were there, it was about 50 or 60 people, voted in favor of the energy efficiency retrofit. 100% voted in favor of the new deck, which just blew me away. I don't have a good poker face, but I thought it would be the other way around. At least that's where my heart is. But it 100% for the deck, about 60-70% for the solar panels. When the solar panels went online, this is another part of it. One of the people who has very strong connections with the current government sent me an email congratulating me personally, but said, I prefer to burn fossil fuels. You know, that's kind of what you're up against.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that story. There's definitely a lot of discussion around all of these decisions that need to be made at the community level and at other levels. Wow. So thank you so much, Reg, for joining in the discussion. If anyone else does want to come and join in, you are welcome to turn on your camera and get involved. We would love that. But some of the questions I have received, do you think that community leagues should have a stronger ability to create and enforce community bylaws? Reg, I think, says yes from his face.
So just a small interjection. I just wanted to acknowledge Reg's contribution to this research. If you remember in the slides, there was a poster from Cloverdale Community League, and he has sort of shepherded the movement there. Sorry. So thank you, Reg. Thank you for joining in today and joining the conversation. And I move back to Valerie's question there about giving leagues powers to get bylaws in for getting this done.
Oh, sorry, my mic was off. So some other questions we have received. Sorry, I'm just checking the list we have. What sustainability measures are most significant in terms of promoting sustainability or making communities more energy efficient? Sorry, there's furniture being moved into the house behind me, so it's very noisy on my end if you hear banging.
Sorry, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Please, yeah, could you please repeat that question? I'm sorry.
Yes, sorry.
And Valerie, also, I don't know whether we answered the first question. If you want to repeat that, then
yep. Do you think community leagues should have stronger ability to create and enforce community bylaws?
My quick answer would be probably no. We already have a set of bylaws at the city level, and we may not want to create more bylaws. We already have enough bylaws to deal with. But I like the structure that we have in Edmonton, where community leagues are recognized by the municipal government, and the fact that the leagues could voice their opinion about their own community or building permits or development permit or subdivision permit and so on and so forth. So I personally do not want to create, let's say, another level of layer of bureaucracy personally. That's how I see it. Nilakshi may have different answer. I don't know.
So yeah, I hold a bit of a different view there, and Sandeep, we've had this discussion about getting legal powers to do something, and I refer back to the Localism Act in the UK, which gives neighborhoods the power to do such a thing, to make their own plans alongside. So the city appoints a planner, and if the neighborhoods can muster enough number of people, they have the power to make their own plans. This is, however, this is a right that you have the choice to exercise, and most neighborhoods in the UK found that this was very successful in neighborhoods that had such structures in place, had community structures in place to get that. So just legal powers without a structure that brings the community together is also only half of the job done. So it was more successful in neighborhoods that had legal powers and then had these structures to implement them.
Thank you so much. It's definitely a challenge when you don't have the teeth, but it's true. There's sometimes too many layers to get through. So it's, I guess, finding that perfect balancing act in between. So that second question, sorry about that. What sustainability measures are most significant in terms of promoting sustainability or making communities more energy efficient?
I can take a stab at that, if that's all right. So again, I think we should take a step back and look at the imagination that we have of communities and community level efforts. And I think it's very important to understand that it is, in the end, a very socio-technical process. So all the wind turbines and the solar panels that you see in my background are only part of the solution. And you also need people to take up those ideas, to promote those ideas, to really want to do it, to be successful. And I feel a good mix of technology and society is ideal for such a transition process to really take a ground and then really flourish.
Reg, I think you just turned your mic off. I don't know if you wanted to add something there.
Just wanted to, I think Nilakshi's comments are interesting. I think COVID presents an interesting comparison. We've all been waiting with bated breath for the technology the vaccines to get us out of the bubble and fix things in terms of COVID. And there's a tendency, I think, at least in Western cultures, to look for technological solutions to social problems. But really, COVID is a social issue, and behavior change, wearing a mask like the poster in Aspen Gardens, limiting your trips outside, socialize. That's the key to flattening the curve. And I think the same thing applies to energy transition, doing little things like don't use the remote starter in your car and run your car for 20 minutes while you're having breakfast before you go to work, if you're still going to work. Going to permaculture rather than having a great big front lawn. It's those little bottom-up things that percolate and give people the putting in low flow faucets in your home, your shower heads. Those are the low hanging fruit that will finally, I think, build momentum so that people can then take the big jump where finances are a barrier and other things to get to solar panels. But I don't think we can look at technology is part of it, but society's, it's sort of the 80-20 rule. I think society's the 80%, technology is the 20%. My 2 bits worth.
Thank you, Reg. Sandeep, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I just don't want to hog too much of time because there may be other questions, but I just wanted to say, I think what Reg is referring to is, it's about education, and it's about, we adults think about solutions and solutions in the form of technology. But I think if it can be imbibed through school, education, curriculum to our kids, it's the kids who will tell us, oh, Dad, don't do what you're doing, and turn off the light and do this thing. I think it's this generation which is coming up, the new citizens of Canada, who would tell the adults what to do and what not to do. So I think it's a lot about how we educate our kids.
I would definitely agree, though I'm probably biased as the outreach coordinator. I think that it's essential that we start young and get people to think, should I do this? How do I make decisions? And then it stays with them throughout the rest of their lives. All right, our next question. Sandeep, I'll get you to take this one first, and then Nilakshi, you can take a stab. How can these bottom-up strategies and top-down strategies work together in the energy transition question? What can you learn from the bottom-up to inform the top-down, and vice versa?
Yeah, it's thank you for the question, and it's interesting that we were debating this question just a few days ago. So we have another project going on in which we are looking at provincial policies, legislation, and municipal policy plans. So sort of, let's say, top-down approach, and then this one is bottom-up. What we have noticed is that the two don't quite meet. They remain in their own separate levels. And I think the real solution is bringing the two, top-down and ground-up approach, and have them intersect. So if you look at how people think about energy transition, and I think the last slide of our presentation that Nilakshi had put up, which actually had three key points. And it was not much to do with community league. It was very personal. It was about personal finances. It was about that someone had told them that, hey, if you use this technology, it's going to work. And they had witnessed that it was going to work. And third, which is related to first one, is about the fact that if there are subsidies available from somewhere, federal government, provincial government, then it sort of gives you some incentive to take that step. right? And obviously you need to be environmentally conscious and aware and so on and so forth as the third or the fourth layer of this to move in this direction. So I think if you just look at all of this, it's a complex mix here. But what we have noticed is that things happen at the top level, things happen at the bottom level. They don't quite meet. And somehow we have to figure out a way to meet. And Green League is a way to do so. And that's why we were interested in finding it out. We have some more work to do, but maybe Nilakshi could add a little bit more about her thoughts on it.
Thank you. No, the discussion about top down and bottom up has been an eternal debate. And I don't know if we will ever reach a sweet point in the discussion, but at this point, I would like to quote Rob Hopkins, who was the founder of the Transition Town movement, which Sandeep showed the example of. And he said that we can do a lot without the government, but we can do a lot more with them. So I think there lies the whole discussion. And having said that, and the counter argument to that, and I'll share that in the chat box, is that if we wait for governments, it'll be too late, too little, too late. If we act as individuals, it'll be too little. But if we act as communities, it might be enough just in time. So that would be my position on that as well.
That is a great quote. So if anyone wants to see it, it's in the chat box. Just to pop back to one of the earlier questions about giving community leagues more teeth, we had a question from the audience. Do you think the Municipal Government Act could be modified to give community leagues greater legal powers, or would it be through other legislation? Nilakshi, I don't know if you want to take the first stab at that.
I would rather that Sandeep talks about it, because this is his area of work.
Sounds good. Sandeep.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
It could, but do we want it is the question. I mean, it could, but keep in mind that by now, if let's say MGA allows another entity to create bylaws, enforce bylaws, then essentially we are creating another level of government. Some things can be passed on, like you can outsource certain functions, like as provincial government does. It enables municipalities to tax, collect taxes, offer services, and so on and so forth. So it can do what the question is asking, but do we as collective want our provincial government or federal government to do that? I think that is a much bigger question.
And probably one for a much longer talk, with that being the sole topic.
Yes. So if I could just add a little bit more, if you look at the Constitution of Canada, it's basically the only two levels of the government that have sort of the exclusive set of powers. It's the federal government and the provincial government. Municipal government only shows up in section 92, subsection 8. And essentially it says that municipal governments are creatures of their respective provincial governments. So you can see that Canada's confederation is based on two principles. One is supremacy of parliament, and second is federalism. We have, over the years, have accepted municipal government as the third level of government, but still is the creature of the provincial government. Are we, as Canadians, ready to enable another sort of, let's say, community league as a form of government is a much larger question. And whether even Constitution allows that, I don't know.
Thank you so much for diving into that. It was the person who asked the question is saying it's a profound answer. So you've definitely provided a lot of insight. So thank you. Nilakshi, if you want to take a first stab at the next question, what are some of the features that you guys have found that tend to make community leagues adopt sustainability measures? Age, location, some unknown factor. So what makes a community league more likely to become involved in these sustainability projects?
So that's a very good question. And I would like to talk a bit about the methodology that we adopted for this research. So we got this list of 21 leagues from the Green Leagues program that had already started such efforts. So we did not go through a statistical process of looking at certain characteristics attributed to the league. However, afterwards, when we compiled this data, when we looked at what had worked in certain leagues, and mind you, I'm just talking from a very small sample size of 10 leagues. It was, if you would notice, most of these leagues that had done this were very well-established leagues, first of all. So so a newer league versus a more established league had a much established program. And I take the example of Riverdale again here, which is a very well-established community league structure. What had also worked well, other than the constitution of the leagues, of the neighborhoods, was also the number of people who got onto the Sustainability Council. So, and that was a very interesting thing to notice. So if it was just one person who took on the initiative, the problem started to creep in. There was burnout, there was only limited time. Whereas if it was a committee versus a person or a subcommittee, that sort of held the program together, has continued to hold the program together. So just because of the nature of our methodology, we went to leagues who had already started, but an extension of our study can definitely look into if there were certain patterns within these 21 leagues that sort of initiated the program.
Thank you so much. We had another question about how much turnover there is and how that influences the long-term effectiveness. And it seems like you need a big committee of people to be involved so that you don't have that when one person leaves, the whole program dies out. You have a change management system almost intact in the league to keep it going. Have you found any strategies to kind of address that change management for those short-term projects, or to keep projects going long-term?
I can answer that. So again, leagues have, by the virtue of being in their neighborhoods for such a long time, and we mentioned this under intrinsic opportunities for leagues, is that they have had a history of having run multiple programs like these, some of them successfully and some of them unsuccessfully. And one characteristic, as I mentioned, was programs that have more number of people, more volunteers, automatically get more time and energy, and hence was successful. And it came up during the interviews, and a lot of interviewers mentioned that each league is also unique in certain ways. So what might work in one league might not work in another league. But then to answer this question, leagues probably need to look at their own history, look at programs that have worked, and then see what structures made that program click. Yeah, that would be my answer.
And Sandeep, I don't know if you want to take this, but almost expanding on that, how do you share experiences between leagues? what worked really well in one league, is there a strategy in place to share between groups, or is that something that should be put in place?
Yes, and I think the platform is EFCL, which is the Edmonton Federation of Community Leagues. They have put together a number of workshops and seminars. They invite representatives from community leagues to share their experience. So that platform already exists, I would say, and seems to be working. So yeah.
Wonderful.
But as what happens these days, you know, if you are interested, you're going to be part of it. If you're not interested, you're not going to be part of it. So we have our choices. So I think those who participate, they self-select, you know, that platform to disseminate their ideas. And that is the sort of the flip side of my argument.
Yeah. There's definitely some good discussion happening in the chat box about joining the different committees. Are there currently systems, programs in place to help community leagues initiate new sustainability projects? Does that exist from different levels of the government?
Nilakshi, you have.
So I think the first step for a league, if they are interested, or if there are members in the audience today who are interested in starting this, my suggestion would be to contact the Green League program, and I will just share the link in a bit. And as Sandeep said, EFCL sort of becomes this hub, and the Green League program does the initial hand-holding to help you understand what this entails, to help you access funds. And this is, again, the intrinsic strength of the EFCL structure, of the community league structure, that they will help you through the initial process. Keeping the momentum going, keeping the program going is then on the league. So I will just share the link in the chat box.
Thank you so much. So there'll be lots of links in that chat box, lots of resources for you to use. So from those results, we do have some questions from Calgary. Oh, Steve is ready to ask live. So I'm just going to pass off to Steve to turn on his mic and ask his questions from the Calgary perspective.
Hi there, everybody. This is a great event, and I'm getting a lot of good, valuable information here. I do some work with the Calgary Climate Hub, and in fact, we do work specifically. We have our community climate conversations, which is we're pulling together a large group of people with a bunch of experts, and we just had that last night, which is a wonderful thing. Then we have a follow-up event, which is we call the activation conversation. So for each community that we visit, we have that follow-up event, and that's where we're trying to bring people in and onboard them to existing initiatives or create new ones. And I guess, you know, when I'm hearing you guys talk, I feel like, you know, you guys have these green leagues up and in place, and we're sort of jogging along and trying to, you know, I'm wondering about, you know, how important is it having a networked group like the leagues to do this? You know, we have the Federation of Calgary Communities, and I think the Calgary Climate Hub is trying to do some of this stuff. But I guess, you know, is that networked league fairly critical, do you think?
Nilakshi, you want to take a first stab at that?
Okay. So thank you, Steve, first of all, for joining in today. And we've been in conversation with the Calgary Hub as well regarding this project. So, and we find the work that you do very interesting as well. And this came up, in those conversations, that the whole network of the existing network of the community league is an additional benefit. So on one hand, you have the passion to do something, take on this project, and then you get this network to sort of become this place that fosters this idea. So definitely, I would say, and this we identified this in the study of literature of many other such attempts as well, to sort of embed these ideas into established networks. And leagues are an example. There are also many other examples of existing grassroots networks that could be school networks in a neighborhood, could be religious groups that have existed in a community for a long time. So there are those. So what we wanted to point out through the example of leagues or community leagues was that what happens when this idea of sustainability meets a well-established network. So can you then leapfrog over the process of establishing that networks, get it going, and so on and so forth.
Excellent. Okay, I have one other question, if I can impose to take up this time.
Absolutely.
Given that we do end up pulling in these people and try to onboard them to existing initiatives, and there's an ideation process where they might come up with some ideas. We try to get that to get off the ground. I'm wondering if there are certain initiatives that are more that people are more gravitating towards, easier to get folks onboarded to and excited about.
Sandeep, do you want to take a first answer at that?
And this is, you're talking about, Steve, other than energy transition, like other ideas you're talking about?
We can stay within the energy transition sphere if you like, by all means.
And Nilakshi, you have, because I had a slightly different thought, and I was going along with what Reg had just put on the chat box. And it sort of cuts across a whole bunch of questions that were asked before about institutional memory and management and all of that. And you can see it around yourself in your neighborhood, how neighborhood evolves over time. You know, it tends to start with, you know, families with small kids, and kids grow up and leave, and then it becomes, which is the case where I am in Westbrook. And you could see over the years how, I mean, especially those who get involved in the league, as you would see, they have younger kids. And because league does a lot of things for younger, soccer, you have, you know, all kinds of things and festivals, and as the kids grow up and you see the parents become much more dissociated from the community league. So I think engagement in the community league, in my humble opinion, somewhat depends upon, you know, the range of services and programs that they offer. At the moment, what I see is that it's very much kids-centric, or in some neighborhoods, it's very much senior folks centric. What is missing is that middle part, and it's the middle that has a lot of experience and still have energy to do things, but we have not been able to, or we meaning community leagues or neighborhood organizations such as community leagues have not been able to tap that segment of the people who live in the neighborhood. So that's my sort of some random thought. But Nilakshi, if you wish to add, please go ahead.
Well, I absolutely agree with that. And just going back to some of the findings from this research, the people who were sustainability directors or are sustainability directors, when I was asking them what was their motivation for having joined this project or having started this project, and some of them are in the audience today and they can definitely chime in if they want, was that these were individuals that were, first of all, very interested in the idea, very passionate about the idea. Some of them had professional experience of, let's say, working in the renewable energy sector. So they brought that professional expertise and they brought it to their league. So it was a combination of passion and knowledge among volunteers that sort of brought them to this program. And I'm sure that those people exist in every neighborhood. It was that these people found their leagues, found this platform, and got the program going. I think we need to keep the conversation going about this to get more such people, so that it's not just 21 leagues out of 161 that are on board. That probably all 161 have similar programs.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate the work you guys are doing.
Thank you so much for your questions, Steve. I guess expanding on that, do you have any suggestions on what you've seen in engaging with those 21 leagues of how do you bring in that center group of people who have that participation in this more sustainability focused? Sandeep, do you want to start, or Nilakshi? Oh, your mic.
Let Nilakshi take a lead on this.
So I would say that rather than the community league finding these people, the people found the community league. I would say it was the other way around, because most of these projects were self-initiated. There were people who were working as building managers for their league, and a right grant came at a right time. The Green Leagues program announced such things. It caught their interest. They got the program going. So I would say in most of the stories that I heard or people talk, it was the other way around.
Yeah, I would agree with what Nilakshi has said. And energy transition or Green Leagues program is just one example, but there are a number of other examples, and I can speak from just one or two community leagues that I have looked at very closely. It is individuals' initiatives on the community league boards. There are those individuals who will go out and look for pots of money, write proposals, and field their proposals and get the funds and get going on whatever the initiative the funds were for. So it is very much individual driven still, within the institution and structure of community league. But the issue is, and we just don't have the answer for it, and that individual, that person leaves for whatever reason, leaves the city, the neighborhood, whatever, life has its own way of doing things, then that institutional memory just dissipates very, very quickly. And that's what I fear about Green Leagues program, even within these 21 or the 10 that we are looking at. It's driven by individuals.
Yeah, that tends to be a problem in a lot of these smaller organizations, these groups trying to reach out to the community. You have those passionate people, so building in that institutional lifetime is definitely a strategy. So we have time for a couple more questions. People can often feel like they're being punished by new sustainability measures because it can cost more for energy, require new renovations, changes to lifestyle, etc. Can community leagues play an important role to overcome this perception? Nilakshi, you're nodding. Do you want to take it first?
So two points there. First of all, yes, I think there needs to be a lot of discussion about how the price of renewables or the price of generating energy from renewables is drastically going down. People need to hear stories from people who adopted this, and this came up in the surveys. People are really curious to know how did it work out for their neighbor who put all these solar panels, and leagues are those platforms where such stories can be shared and make this conversation more normal. Yeah, oh, sorry, I lost my, but yeah, so let's just go with that. It is peers getting more comfortable with seeing this, understanding this, and normalizing this in neighborhoods.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I think Nilakshi had summed it up quite well, but I'll tell you from my own very personal experience. And it connects a whole bunch of dots. So NDP government had the Alberta Efficiency Program, and we decided to change our water heater tank to tankless water heater. So there were subsidies available. We were already a little bit more environmentally conscious and aware. We did the math and we found out that the switch from the tank to tankless, we found that we're not going to financially benefit much. It would take about 30, 35 years to even recoup the money put into the tankless water heater. But we thought, hey, this is good for the environment. And there were some subsidies coming as well. So we went ahead and did it. But what happened since then was we would tell this story to our friends and neighbors within our neighborhood. And they were inspired by it. And they would come and look at it and wanted to get our feel. Does it work? What if I have 2 levels and 5 bathrooms and, little things that, is it going to cause me inconvenience? I have 3 kids and they all take shower at the same time and so on. So, and they felt comforted by our experience and they went ahead and made the change as well. But I think Nilakshi is right. Perhaps Community League could be a platform or repository of these stories where stories can be exchanged either through social media that Community League runs, or they could have a meeting or what have you. I mean, there are stories that can be exchanged to inspire other people to make the transition. And Community League could be that vehicle to do so.
Yeah, sharing your successes, even your challenges, what worked, what didn't, finding ways to learn from each other. So if anyone has any last questions, this is your last chance to put them in the chat box and ask. But for Sandeep and Nilakshi, what are the next steps? What do you do next in this project, and how does that lead to your final goal? Nilakshi, do you want to go first?
So a couple of things. First of all, we have to write this report for the Green Leagues program, share our findings with them. So that's an immediate goal. But this whole interaction with community leagues over the last 1 year has been very interesting for us personally, and also as researchers, it has been a very interesting experience. And based on this experience, we have extended our research into next year. And we have the very ambitious goal of working closely with 3 leagues to sort of get to understand what a neighborhood level climate action plan looks like, or a strategy at neighborhood level. So we did a lot of talking today about what it could be, but then we sort of want to bring the experience that we have had with urban planning, with neighborhood planning, talk to leagues, tap into their networks, their interests, and see and sort of come up with a tangible plan. So that's the whole plan for 2021.
I have another one that I haven't shared with Nilakshi yet. And that is to do a similar study where we do not have a structure like Community League. At the moment, we have just looked at the Community League. We have no sort of way to compare us against. So I would rather like to look at some of this city and see whether we find similar things or not. Obviously, I don't have money for that yet, but if I do get some money, I think that would be my next project, or next to next.
Wonderful. Get excited, Nilakshi. Surprise. But we want to thank you so much. If you do have any last questions, we'll be online for a few more minutes, so you're welcome to stick around and ask more one-on-one if you weren't comfortable in the space. But again, thank you for attending tonight. Consider signing up for our next talks. I've put the registration links into the chat box. We host a lecture every month, other than December, because it would be like 2 days before Christmas, and we figure you're probably busy. But consider signing up for the next 3 talks that we have. The registrations are in there. January is going to be new technologies for the new year. So we're going to have a few speakers who are each going to take a few minutes to share new energy technologies with you, and then lots of space to ask questions. But thank you again for attending. Sandeep, Nilakshi, thank you so much for sharing your passion for your work and everything that you do. I think it was great discussion here tonight, and it's been wonderful to hear about your research.
I can echo that. Thank you, Valerie, and thank you everyone who's joined us. Just a heads up, I'll email out the links for the next talks to everyone who registered. So if you miss them in the chat, you can get them there. And I'll also email out a feedback link. So if you have any feedback about the talk tonight that you would like to provide us, or if you want an anonymous way to do so, that'll be coming in your emails tomorrow morning.
Consider also subscribing to the EPL newsletter and the Future Energy Systems newsletter. They both come out once a month, I believe, for both organizations. You'll find out all about these events and different things that we do. Thank you so much. Nilakshi, Sandeep, if you'd just like to say goodbye and sign us off.
Yeah, no, listen, thank you so very much, Valerie, for moderating the session. And Cassidy, Edmonton Public Library, for hosting us, and for all of you for joining in so late in the evening and staying on.
Wonderful. Nilakshi.
Thank you. Thank you. To add to the list of acknowledgements, thanks to all the participants, and thanks to all the participating leagues in our program. Without their support and time, and we said that volunteer time is very limited, to have participated in this. And for all the participants today, if we could also request you to participate in our survey, which is currently ongoing and active. So if your league was mentioned in the 10 participating leagues, please do share your thoughts with us. We would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we hope to see you at our next talk in January. Bye, everybody.